The Hongdian A3 is a slender cartridge converter fountain pen that's primarily made out of aluminum. The bottom finial is flat and polished, and the top finial is flat with a slight recess that shows 3 dragons going around a ring of fire. The clip is a slender bent metal clip, which is springy and functional, and then the cap has a gradual taper from the top to the bottom, and it features a series of ribs going in a diagonal pattern, which carries on to the barrel. At the bottom of the cap, we have a cap band that reads Hongdian A3. The cap pulls off to reveal a nice number 5 stainless steel nib. There's a lot of detail on this nib. I'll see if I can try and get it all captured here. There's gold on the outside, silver on the inside with vertical stripes, a depiction of Saturn, as well as a rocket ship. And then it says Hongdian and an F for fine, though the F is a little bit obscured by the section. The section starts with a flange, and then we have a tapering portion which has horizontal ribs going around the length of it, and those ribs give you good texture and grip. We then have a little metal band, followed by the barrel, which again has those diagonally oriented ribs, and that barrel has a gradual taper down to the end finial. In the hand, the pen is very comfortable, lightweight, and well balanced. The cap posts deeply and securely, and it transfers the weight a little bit further back, but I find it's again right at the crook of my hand, so a very well balanced pen. In terms of size comparisons, here's your Hongdian A3, a typical Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. Disassembling the Hongdian A3, the cap pulls off, and if we look inside, we can see there is a cap liner. However, this one's quite difficult to remove, so for cleaning purposes, I would just run this under warm soapy water. The barrel unscrews from the section, and there we can see the included converter, which can be pulled right out. The nib and feed can be unscrewed from the section, and I imagine you could pull the nib and feed out of this nib collar. However, mine won't budge, so I'm going to leave this one in place. For cleaning purposes, I just attach a bulb syringe and flush this with water. If you want to disassemble the converter further, grab some gripping material around the back ring and pull it off. And then the piston unit should be pulled out from the back. Oop, I need those gripping materials again. It's a little bit wet. There we go. And then inside we have an agitator, which comes off. Some people like agitators, other people don't. I don't mind them as long as they're not overly obnoxious with rattling. What they do is they break up surface tension inside the converter so ink doesn't cling up inside it. If you want, you can unscrew the piston further, and at this point you have the pen fully disassembled. To reassemble, let's start with the converter. We'll grab our piston knob and our piston, and that just screws in place. Then we'll take the barrel for our converter, insert the agitator. Again, that step is optional. Personally, I find it useful to have. The piston unit just pushes right on place, and then you have the sleeve that goes over that. And at this point, the converter is fully functional. We'll then screw our nib and feed unit into our section and attach our converter, followed by our barrel, and lastly our cap. And now we're ready to ink up. Inking up the Hongdian A3, today I selected Diamine Midnight, which is a nice deep blue. Cap pulls off, and take the cap off the bottle of ink as well. Remove the barrel, extend the converter all the way down. Submerge the nib into ink and start screwing up the converter. In order to get a full fill, I'm going to extend the converter piston one more time and then draw it back up. That looks like a nice full fill. Grab some paper towel and wipe off that section. This is one area where those ribs can become a little bit annoying. Ink does tend to cling on those horizontal ribs in the section. We'll go ahead and cap up our ink so we don't have a big mess. Throw the barrel on the back of our pen, followed by the cap, and we're ready to write. Okay, writing with the Hongdian A3, cap pulls off. And I have this in a stainless steel fine nib. And it's a well-tuned nib. It's smooth with a bit of feedback. Doesn't provide much bounce, but it is a reliable writer. Our ink is Diamine Midnight. For flex, I'll turn the page. No real line variation. This nib is extremely stiff. Not quite stiff as nails, but pretty darn close. And for reverse writing, you get a lot more feedback, but it's not very scratchy, and the feed kept up pretty well. So in a pinch, I would say you certainly could reverse write with this pen, though you don't really get a huge amount of line variation. So what do I think of the Hongdian A3? I really like this pen. I think it is a striking pen, especially with the swirl pattern that's on the cap and the barrel. It's kind of captivating to look at and turn in your hand. I like all the details that they've added to this pen. The dragons going around a ring of fire is pretty cool to look at. I don't quite know the symbolism of that, but I'm sure someone could find that online. And that nib is nicely tuned and has really cool features. I like the design of this nib quite a bit with Saturn and the rocket. It's kind of a space age pen, and it looks very futuristic. I do think the nib is maybe a little bit small for the overall proportion of this pen, but it's a reliable writer. It's not very bouncy as far as steel nibs go, but it's smooth, it's wet, and it writes when you need it to. The section with the ribs give you good grip, but again, as I showed during the inking up portion, the ribs do catch ink quite a bit and get clung up in there, so it's a little bit of a pain to clean out. I find if you can't get all the ink out, just use a little wet paper towel and it'll be fine. The only other thing too with the design that maybe could be improved is on the threads. I think it would have been nice to include a little O-ring at the top of these threads just to help give you a secure tightening down of the barrel so this doesn't accidentally get unscrewed while you're writing. And maybe the only other thing too is when you're posting, I don't think it would have been very hard for Hongdian to have made the finial diameter the same as the tip of this section. That way you could get a positive click when you're posting it, somewhat similar to this Lamy Studio that I recently reviewed. That posting is an extremely satisfying feel. So I think maybe that's one more thing that this pen could have been improved with. But besides that, for the price, it's an extremely stylish pen. It's a good writer. I think it's not overly flashy. It's very appropriate. Kind of a cool space age design. So a fun one to have in your collection, and one that's going to stay in mind for quite a while. And that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.